Q&A session with Coach. Who would like to take the first run at it?
What you got?
We're going to go to our left, Mackenzie. Coach is going to be just about where the light is on the column.
I'm sorry, I don't see him. Okay, I got you.
Hey Dave, Stephen Bailey with the Post-Standard and Syracuse.com. I was just curious what your thoughts were on Dino Babers as a fit at Syracuse, and also looking at his offense, what kind of makes it unique?
I've had a chance when I was at Northern Illinois. Dino was at Eastern Illinois. We didn't play each other, but we worked at camp together, and that was my first time being around him. And, he's got a great way about him. I think he's good with people. I think he's genuine. His track record as an offensive play caller speaks for itself. He's done a great job. I think he inherited a good team at Bowling Green, and he kept it good. I think sometimes that's harder than people think. And he did a really nice job there. And I know watching them and Northern compete, going to Syracuse, obviously he's got to get the personnel that he wants to be able to run his system. But, we know he's going to play fast. We know just watching the different systems that are similar to his now that are out there, they score a lot of points. And I'm sure that's something the fans in Syracuse are looking forward to.
Coach, still on your left, very back row.
Hey, Coach, Todd Gibson, CBS North Carolina. Everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks, obviously, but your stable of running backs rushed for over 1,600 yards last season. How important will they be in taking pressure off whoever is named the starter?
Well, I think most quarterbacks would tell you a run game's their best friend, and the health of our running back group is going to be very important. We went into last season, and I think last year at this thing, that was the question I got. What are you going to do with all your backs? And then we had Shad kicked off the team, and Matt injured, and Reggie injured, and then DeQuay got injured, and we were down to our fifth-string tailback in the bowl game, which we were lucky to have Naheem and Jalen Samuels playing other positions that we could move into the backfield. So our health at that position's key number one. All these guys are going to be 100% and full go for fall camp, and so hopefully all the treatment and all the training and all the recovery has got them ready to play the game. That's the one thing that you don't do in rehab. You don't run anybody over. You don't get tackled or take on a blitzing linebacker. So all the running backs have to kind of play some football now and get themselves ready for the game. But we do have good players there, and Matt Days is first and foremost as talented a running back as I've been around when it comes to all the things that a back can do, from running inside, running outside, to having vision, to having finishing speed, to catching the football, to running routes, to playing in space. He can do a lot of things. And so having a healthy Matt Days for our quarterbacks is very important.
Coach, to your right, second row, Bob Holliday.
You mentioned care of the ball. You actually committed fewer turnovers than anybody in the league. Looking at this offense with Eli Drinkwitz on board, what will people in the stands notice differently?
Well, they'll see the tempo's going to be drastically different. We were a huddle football team last year. We were a ball control team. And we had a veteran offensive line, and that was something that we thought was to our benefit. Jacoby was somebody that we felt in the huddle had a good presence, and we wanted him talking to the players. We're different. We're younger on the offensive line. We're playing against, as everybody knows, probably the hardest schedule in the ACC. And we're playing some veteran D-lines. So to give my offensive line the best chance they had, I thought playing up-tempo would help them, getting their defensive fronts tired with Coach's system. Going back to that part of your question, he does put the ball in the quick game part of what we do, the screens. The perimeter passing game will look a lot different, I think. Formationally, there's not a lot that he does that's different than what we did before. I think it's just how fast it's happening, and some of the play selection is different.
Coach, very back of the room, camera stand to the right.
Coach Jared Falco, WRAL-TV. You mentioned the success of your special teams, and you have a legitimate track and field star returning kickoffs for you.
We do.
The Big 12 commissioner said the other day that kickoffs are the most dangerous play in all of college athletics. What are your thoughts on the NCAA potentially eliminating those down the line?
I'd like to see the study on that before I tell you that I agree with it. We didn't have injuries on our kickoff team last year, so I think that it's a very exciting play in football. I think that they've moved the kickoff line forward and backwards, and they're playing around with all that. There's a lot more touchbacks than there ever were, and I think it's a play that go to the national championship game last year. Alabama doesn't win, if that play is not part of college football. I mean, they returned a kickoff for a touchdown, and they had an onside kick. I just would hate to see what football would look like without it, personally. You know, I think if the intent is to prevent injury, I'm all for that, you know, and let's look at the different reasons of why they're happening and make sure that we understand why we're making a rule change so drastic, because that would change the game quite a bit from a field position standpoint. And you know, personally, I enjoy that part of the game a lot. I think every kid that signs up to play football understands what it is, and all games start with a kick one way or the other, and that would change the game quite a bit.
Coach, right side, first row, back to Dan.
Coach, when you look at kind of what you've seen, you've talked about the running backs and obviously the quarterback situation. Without Jacoby, what did you see through the spring, and what can you say about Jalen and the rest of the guys that you have at that position, kind of where it's heading into the fall?
Well, we have three options, and I'm excited to have three options, first of all, because we haven't had that yet. And going back to the spring, Jalen McClendon, you know, has the most experience. Jacoby Myers redshirted last year and got better as the spring went on, and he can do some things with his feet that are really special. You know, Jalen redshirted, sat behind Jacoby and learned, and last year played some games in some games for us, and was ready to play in every game. And so I know he's chomping at the bit, and I'm sure he feels like he's waited his turn. I believe, you know, when you have a new system, you need to let the system not just get taught, but get taught a couple times before you see what the guys have. Because sometimes they're thinking things through still. It's not natural for them yet. And so I didn't want to make any choices, you know, at the end of the spring because of that. I wanted the summer to be a time where they could relearn the system. And then when we go into the fall camp, you know, just see where we're at. There may be a lot of separation when we get into camp. There may not. And then bringing Ryan Finley in, you know, from Boise gives us a third guy that he knows the offense. You know, he's not having to learn it, and has played in a game. And what I didn't want, you know, having the schedule we have is to walk into, you know, the hotel on a Friday night and get ready to go to bed. And if one of those two guys that we had was injured, feel like we don't have an option if this guy goes down in the game. You know, having three guys I think is really important, especially when you're playing, you know, the type of defenses that we are.
Coach, camera stand back of the room, just to the left, yellow or white shirt there.
How you doing, Coach? Mitch Brown, WTKR TV. Can you just talk about, you came to Old Dominion last year. You guys play them again this year. Can you talk about playing them week 3, and then week 1 you play William and Mary as well, so two 7-5-7 teams?
You know, for us, playing those teams is great because we recruit in Virginia, and our fans can get there if we're playing there, and their fans can get to Raleigh if they're playing at our place. And, you know, for me, anytime I'm looking at a non-conference game, you know, if we can play somebody in a driving area, I think that's important, you know, for our fans. I think they deserve that. Our players' parents, you know, allowing them to not have to get on an airplane to fly and watch their sons play. And then going back to recruiting, you know, I mean, for us to go play in Utah or something like that doesn't help us in recruiting. But be able to play a game, a non-conference game, you know, in the state of Virginia, or have a Virginia team play in our state, or a Maryland team, makes sense, you know. I mean, I think that's a smart thing to do. Going back to Old Dominion and William and Mary, we respect both those teams quite a bit. I think their coaching staffs have done a great job. And, you know, 2 years ago, we had a heck of a game with Old Dominion. So I know last year they were replacing maybe the best quarterback in program history. So, you know, I know that guy probably going into his second year will have a lot more confidence heading into the season than he did a year ago.
Coach, hard left against the wall next to the exit sign.
Rob McLean with Pack Pride. Coach, what attributes and skills do you believe led the leadership council to give Jalen Samuels the #1 jersey?
You know, what I heard is that he shows up to work every day with the same mentality, the same attitude. Every practice gives the same effort. Every game shows up to play and to win. And just very steady, super competitive guy that they all respect as a worker. And that's what I told them when I tasked them with it. I said, you know, the last 2 years I've selected who I thought was deserving of it. I'd like to hear who you guys think deserve it this year and why. And that's who they came back to me with, and I totally agree with them. I think Jalen's very deserving, and I know he'll represent it well.
Coach, a question from right here at the podium with me. You referenced the season ticket sales earlier. NC State's marketing and ticket team got to a sellout just about as quick as anybody did in the country, if not quicker. What does the game day experience mean for you and your staff and your players on the field when you have those stands as full as they are?
The home field advantage is real at Carter Finley, I can tell you that. And you know, the quality of opponent we're bringing in, I know had something to do with that. I think the relationship that, you know, we've gone out and done everything we can. I think our Wolfpack Club and our marketing staffs have done a great job. And our coaches, we get out in the communities and talk to people. And I think they're starting to understand me better. And, you know, going into year 4, they know how personal it is. They know my family. They know how invested we are. And it means a lot to us as coaches and players to have that stadium full. And it's a unique place. You know, if you haven't been on our field during a game, I know some of you have been in the stadium, but if you haven't been on our field, it's the tightest sideline that I've been in, and the fans are right on top of you, and it's unique that way. And so the louder we can get it, the more red and white we can get in there, the better it's going to be for us.
Other questions for Coach? We're going to go front row to our left. Thank you, Coach.
Adrian Beecher with the Skyboat, Orlando, Florida. Coach, it was announced on Wednesday that JaMychal Ramos would miss the 2016 season. Can you just talk a little bit about what your message was to him and how much you had an influence on the decision for him to get surgery?
Yeah, JaMychal Ramos was the question. And so at the end of the season last year, he was playing with a particle, I guess you'd say, floating in his knee, meniscus or whatever, and they went in and cleaned it out. And that's supposed to be a pretty routine deal. And it just never healed the right way. And so the doctors basically, you know, slowed him down and then started him back up and, you know, kept doing all the different things in rehab that you do. And, you know, he feels great walking around, but as soon as he started to play, he couldn't be who he wanted to be without having swelling. And, you know, JaMychal's got really good hands. He runs good routes. He cares a lot about our football team, but he's not a 4-5 guy. You know, he relies on his technique, and he's a guy that needs to be able to get in and out of his breaks. And he just said, Coach, you know, I can't be the best me the way this thing is. And he said, you know, I can't practice the way I want to practice. I'm not going to be able to practice enough. And I said, let's just look at redshirting you then. You know, I said, you deserve to have a great senior year. And if they can do something else to your knee that can make you healthier for that season, you deserve to have that. And so he went home and thought about it and talked to his family, talked to the trainers, and decided that that was the best thing for him and really for our team, you know. And so if you look at how we're going to recover that, you know, Steph Lewis redshirted a year ago because he had a shoulder. And so Steph now kind of swaps spots with him and comes off the IR, and JaMychal replaces him there. And Steph had a great spring. And they played the same position, so, you know, you're kind of taking one guy who's now a redshirt sophomore and one of our probably better leaders in that room to replace JaMychal. And it'll be a good year of rehab for JaMychal. I know he'll do a good job helping his teammates from the meeting room.
Coach, your last question. Far left, second row.
Corey McCarty with Fox Sports South. I'm sure you would be of the mind that there's talent all over this conference, but when you look at the schedule and you have to prepare for Clemson with Deshaun Watson and Florida State with Dalvin Cook, how daunting is it to have two guys like that people, you know, compare to being the best among their position in the nation?
Oh, it's a great challenge, but I love that. You know, I mean, that's why you coach. You coach to coach against great coaches. You recruit players to play against great players. And there's nothing more rewarding, in my opinion, and I don't care what you do for a living, but if you can do something that somebody says you can't do, that's a pretty good day. And for us, you know, we got two teams that have two players that arguably are the best players in the country. I mean, if they're both healthy, I would assume both of them could be in the Heisman talks. You know, they're that good, both of them. And so for us, you know, defensively going into those games, we're going to have a tremendous challenge. And I know our coaches on that side of the ball, our players, they'll be really excited about that challenge.
Coach, thanks a lot. Good luck this season.